You're listening to Best Forevers, a podcast for kindred spirits, a podcast that encourages you to love more on your friends and to further consider the issues that plague friendships. I'm Sterling Saint Honeysuckle, and I'm here with my partner, Ovaltine Baby Fancy Bottom, talking about our favorite TV show, Psych. I tried so hard to get through that without laughing.
It's fine.
But okay, it's Alysa, and I'm here with my spoopy friend, Courtney from Spoop Hour. Hi, Courtney.
My last name is actually Fancy Bottom, so it's funny that I got that in the meme because that's my real life last name.
Yeah, we played Psych, posted on Twitter in April, a Psych nickname generator, much like what Shawn would do for Gus. So I thought it would be fun to start with those, and I couldn't even. This is why I can't act, joke, prank. I cannot keep a straight face. So funny.
Let me in there. I'm Ovaltine B Fancy Bottom, and I was told you have a gas leak.
I'm Sterling Saint Honeysuckle. Oh, it's horrible. But Courtney's back for her second installment of breaking down our favorite friendship from Psych, Shawn and Gus.
Love it.
Love it. So last week we talked about the premise of the show, Shawn as a person, Gus as a person, the two coming together as friends, and the 5 reasons why their friendship rocked. Courtney and I were totally in sync, like, bye, bye, bye.
We sure were.
We were in sync with our reasons, including number 5. They are long-term friends who understand each other very well. Number 4, they call each other out on issues and deal with conflict most of the time. Number 3, they have shared interests and bond with each other over these interests. Number 2, trust is the core of their friendship. And number 1, Shawn and Gus complete each other. They had each other at hello.
They sure did.
And so in this episode, we want to sort of expand upon that and talk about some of the fun things that we talked about last time, like favorite quotes, nicknames, and Gus don't bees. And so we're going to have a second round of our favorites. We're going to talk about our favorite episode, favorite character, and then we got a couple Psych games, and then we are going to talk about the 5 reasons why their friendship is problematic. And you're like, don't ruin it for me, and I don't think we will. So buckle in and join us for the ride.
Yeah, mine are like soft problematic, like this is a friendship in a TV comedy, so you have to make some sacrifices for the sake of creating a TV comedy. If their friendship was fully healthy, it wouldn't be entertaining.
Well, and I agree with that, but also I came in like the hardcore relational communication person that's like, let's break down these friendship things. So this will be really interesting. I don't think we're going to be as in sync as we were last time, but we'll see.
We'll see.
So let's go ahead and start with, what is your second favorite nickname Shawn gives to Gus? So let's hear it.
That would be Gus TT Showbiz. The extra T
That's
stands
mine!
for extra talent. It's so good.
That's mine! Shawn gives Gus the Gus TT Showbiz.
The extra T is for extra talent.
And it's from Season 2, Episode 1, American Duos,
Yes.
which I know is a fan favorite episode, but that's my favorite part of the whole episode.
It's Gus TT Showbiz.
TT Showbiz. Yeah, that's a great one.
Also, I feel like I should warn your listeners. I don't know how much of it's going to make it in the episode. We are in the middle of like 3 hours of super intense thunderstorms where I live. So if you hear rumbling, no one's come to kill me. It's just the weather.
And it's not that she's hungry. It's not her stomach growling.
I mean, it might be that I'm hungry.
Yeah, but we'll just call it as, if we hear thunder, it's just to showcase that friendships aren't always sunshine. How about that?
True. And the thunder was like, I also love Gus TT Showbiz because it just happened just now.
Oh, and see, I missed it, but yeah, you might get it on Courtney's end, so good call.
We just don't know.
We just don't know. Life is unpredictable, y'all.
It sure
I mean,
is.
I think we know that in quarantine. So, anywho, what is your second favorite Gus don't be that Shawn would say to Gus?
This was a toss-up for me, so I couldn't decide between 2, so I did the American adaptation of the British Gus, which I love, because I watch a lot of British shows that have an American adaptation, and the American adaptation just is never as good. With the exception of, like, maybe The Office. The Office is, like, the only one. And then the other one that was in my toss-up was don't be the only black lead on a major cable network, which I remember at the time of writing, that was true. He was the only black lead on USA at the time.
It's really hard to choose just one, but one of my favorites is Gus Don't Be One of the Last Famous International Playboys, which is a Morrissey song, which is a reference. And the dog's name is Morrissey in the second movie, right? Yeah. So I love that one.
And the first movie.
Is it? Yeah.
Morrissey comes up in the first movie.
You just watched both.
I sure did.
I just watched the second one, so that's why I was like, I might be wrong. Okay. But yeah, I love that one. I think I laughed for like 10 minutes straight when I heard it because it's just one of those like weird 80s song references that you're just not expecting, but it's just like it just hits you in the funnies. And I mean, there's so many good ones, and I hope everyone will tell us their favorites when we post it on the socials. Okay, what's your second favorite quote from this series?
So, my second favorite quote about their friendship, I wrote out the whole speech. It's from the conclusion of the Yin saga. And,
which might come up later.
Yes, so I'll do my second favorite quote about their friendship, and then I'll do my favorite overall quote, which has nothing to do with friendship.
Oh, well, it's all friendship.
It's all friendship. Gus gives a little speech when he thinks he's, spoiler alert, about to die at the hands of Yin. Mm-hmm. And he says, I don't blame you, Shawn. I want you to know that if I had a chance to do it all over again, I wouldn't change a thing. You're my best friend, and we got a chance to live out our childhood dreams. I don't blame you, okay? And I'm sorry if I couldn't always cut loose the way you wanted me to. And I love that one because he truly he thinks he's seconds away from dying, and that's what he wants to say.
Yeah.
And I love that.
When you said that, I was all like, Gus, I love Gus.
He's so sweet. But my favorite overall quote is from my favorite overall episode, and it's technically in Spanish, but I wrote down the English translation, which is, you look like a sweet nectarine wrapped in taffeta. That's my favorite quote.
One of my favorites comes later in the show, and it's from Shawn. He says, just because you put syrup on something doesn't make it a pancake.
Yeah. I just watched that one.
I mean, truer words have never been spoken, right? Yep. So you were just mentioning that your quote came from your favorite overall episode.
Yep.
So can you tell us a little bit about your favorite episode, and then I'll tell everyone about mine.
Yes. So my favorite episode is season 2. I believe it's episode 13, Lights, Camera, Homicidio. And that's where there's been a murder on the set of a telenovela. And Shawn gets accidentally cast in a telenovela as the UPS guy / father of Serena's baby. And you can definitely hear the thunder now. It's shaking my house. So
I love it. Tell me more.
Very spooky. So the premise of the episode is that while filming, someone is supposed to stab someone with a prop knife, but it turns out he actually stabbed the guy and the guy died. And he's like, I swear I didn't mean to stab the guy. I thought it was a prop knife. What do I do? So then they get involved in the case. It's great. I love almost everything about this episode. It also has my favorite Gus nickname, which is Lavender Gooms. Yes. Has my favorite line, Nectarina Dulce, wrapped in taffeta. But the only thing I don't like about it, and it's relevant to our discussion of friendship, is I don't like what happens to poor Juliet trying to make a friend in the police station.
Yeah.
I hate that.
Yeah. It's like seen as inappropriate for her to make friends. And I think that's something that, because we're focusing on Gus and Shawn during this particular show, right? They're the leads and it's about their friendship, that, Juliet doesn't have any friends. And there's one episode that I watched recently, so it was in the later seasons, where it's something along the lines of, and I'll bring Gus and you'll bring whoever it is that is your friends. Yeah, like he doesn't know who her friends are because she doesn't have any.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I was really disappointed by that as well.
I hate it so much. But otherwise, it's a perfect episode. And I love the rest of it so much that it's still my favorite episode, even though I hate that Penny Pasquaretti storyline.
Yeah.
I hate
You're
it.
like, get out of here. There's no reason why two women can't be friends in a police station.
My now supervisor, told me during my interview that her favorite kind of cupcake was red velvet cupcakes. Obviously, I now have this job. And and when her birthday happened, after I had this job, I made her red velvet cupcakes, and she did not file an HR complaint against me. She was like, "Aw, you remembered."
Yeah. Well, it's also like, what's wrong with like making a connection? But we might have to go to friendships in male-dominated places of business on another day. But I just also like, and then the chief kind of says, like, yeah, you shouldn't be friends. And she's like, but I thought we were friends. And she was like, and you thought wrong. And I'm like,
I hate that.
Yeah, so anytime there's anything about Juliet and friends, it is a little disappointing because you want her to have friends, and not be, like, it starts to become, I think, later, and you said spoiler alert, I guess we could spoiler alert this too, is that, you know, when Shawn and Juliet become a couple and are gonna be their people forever, you know, it becomes like a threesome, like 3 best friends that anyone ever had.
Yeah. It's Shawn, Gus, and Juliet.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, well, you kind of wish that Juliet had her Gus, right?
I will say, and I know we're talking about the movie more in other places, but in the first movie, there's, and I know this because I just watched it, when they're like, we're getting married right now, spoilers for the movie, we're getting married right now here on this dock after this guy threatened our lives. And the first person who calls dibs on being Jules's maid of honor is Gus's new lady.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Woody, like, pushes her out of the way and is like, I got this. And then the chief is like, absolutely not. So the chief acknowledges by the movie, that we are friends now.
Yeah.
So that's nice.
Well, it's also, like, one of those things, like, maybe they're not people who express it. Like, so Karen Vick doesn't want to come out as the chief of police and say that she's friends with one of her detectives. And so over time, you see that happening. I think that's interesting. And, yeah, everyone, it's like a large group of friends,
right? I
think, by the end of it all.
I think part of the problem is it's a show about Shawn and Gus. So we only get slices of everyone else's life as it relates to Shawn and Gus.
Everyone else can take a seat because we don't have enough shows about guys' friendship. So everyone else take several seats. We'll come back to you later. Okay. So my favorite episode comes from the dorky movie person inside of me who thought I'd be writing screenplays when I was in high school.
We all had that dream.
And I remember my mom was a librarian for 54 years before she retired. And when she worked at Michigan State University, they had one of their professors. His name is Eric Lundy, and he was amazing. He was a film professor, and he came and gave a presentation about Hitchcock at the library. And I was, like, in the front row and, like, I don't know, middle school, high school, like, dorking out, right? And so I feel like a major shout out to him because Eric Lundy taught me so much about Hitchcock movies. And then when I was in graduate school, I took an entire class focused on Hitchcock, just for funsies. Like, while I dissertated, let's just watch Hitchcock movies. So my favorite is Mr. Yin Presents.
So, fun fact, and this is an appropriate time for a Rumble of Thunder. Thank you, Sky. I was co-president of the Classic Film Club at my high school.
You didn't even have a film club. You had a classic film club.
We had a classic film club. Yep. That's how nerdy we were. And I was co-president. But I love Hitchcock. So I do also love. I think that's my favorite of the Yin Yang trilogy is Mr. Yin Presents. Because I love Hitchcock so much.
There's so many cool references in that episode. And also sort of, like, exciting and thrilling and just, like, sort of, like, terrifying in some ways.
Yeah, on my rewatch, I was like, of course it's Jules who's going to get kidnapped by Yin at the end because she's Kim Novak in Vertigo, and spoilers for Vertigo, Kim Novak does not make it out of Vertigo alive.
Yeah.
So, of course it was going to be Juliet.
Yeah, but it came down to, as we talked about in the last episode, that Gus had to save both of them, and because he sent Gus after Juliet and he went after Abby, they were able to do that and probably go against what Yin wanted. So, but that's my favorite episode. Tell me a little bit about your favorite character, Courtney.
Overall, my favorite main character is obviously Gus. I love him. He's a sweet cinnamon owl mayor of a small town. I love him.
Cinnamon Owl.
I just love him. He's a delight. He tap dances. He's a deep nerd. He feels very strongly about Pluto getting kicked out of the solar system.
Yeah.
He's, he has a season pass to the planetarium. I love Gus. He's just, he's a delight. He manages to hold down a steady job despite also moonlighting as a psych detective, And everybody just goes along with it.
Who's your favorite supporting character?
Probably Lassiter. He's the kind of person that if I knew him in real life, I would hate his guts. But within the context of the show, I'm like, you're so silly. You silly Billy.
And that would be interesting to talk about Shawn and Lassie's friendship or relationship and how it changes, because I think that's interesting. And who is your favorite guest star?
That would be the actor who plays Adam Hornstock in the season 1 episode, Cloudy with a Chance of Murder. Adam Hornstock is my favorite guest character as well. I love him.
See, I agree with you on Gus. I love Gus. I also really enjoy Henry as Shawn's father, Corbin Burnson as Henry. I love that. I think Corbin Burnson is probably exactly like Henry. That's sort of the vibe I get. But and there's so many great guest stars. Maybe, spoiler alert, Val Kilmer coming in.
Oh, right at the end.
In the final episode, as he's talked about Val Kilmer the whole time for 8 years. Yeah, so friendships aren't all those things. They sometimes have some difficulties. So now we are going to break down our top 5 reasons why their friendship is problematic. So I'm nervous about this one because we were so on it last time. I don't think we will this time. So what is your number 5?
My number 5, they hit each other a lot, and they hit each other hard. They aim to cause pain so frequently.
I just was looking at to deal with the stress of fall semester and fall teaching, I really am enjoying all the memes and all the different things that people have created that are basically saying why it's a horrible idea for schools to be open during the coronavirus. Yep. Okay, so one of them is they want children to go and social distance, but have you been around middle school boys? Because they touch each other the most than anyone at any other given time. And I feel like that is Gus and Shawn, and they never grew out of it. It's just they're always hitting each other and touching each other, farting on each other, just all these weird things that you're like, what are you doing?
Yeah, so that's my number 5.
Which, like I said, I knew you're going to come in a certain way and I was going to come in a certain way. So I'm going to have a Courtney top 5 and an Alysa top 5 that I'm keeping track of. Okay. My number 5 is, and I say this as number 5 because it encompasses so much else that happens on the show. And it might definitely be ranked higher in terms of severity. And you might have it on your list, so we'll see. I think that one of their one of the reasons that their friendship is problematic is because it focuses on protecting Shawn's lie of being a psychic.
I don't have that on my list.
Yeah, so that is, here's the communication nerd. Okay?
I love it.
Where it's that is, from the get-go, puts Gus in such a bad position. He has to lie to the police, he has to lie to the public, he has to lie to Henry, he has to lie to his parents. He's lying to everyone, and honestly, his reputation might be ruined just as much, if not more, if Shawn is ever found out, and so it can jeopardize, and it does, his job, his relationships, and so much more. And so one of the things that we talk about in classes, we talk about this theory, which I'm not going to go into a whole lot, called communication privacy management, and talks about the idea of sharing private information with each other, which can be secrets, right? And so sharing private information with another person, I could be holding in a secret about myself, and being able to tell you, Courtney, would just give me so much relief to be able to share this information. I'm not holding it on alone. So it could be a relief for, say, Shawn to tell someone else. But when Gus hears it, he then has to carry someone else's secret as well as his own. And so that can actually be really detrimental to our health by carrying other people's really big secrets. So, number 5, it focuses on Shawn's lie. It's built on a throne of lies. All right, what's your number 4? This is going to be fun because I love yours already. They hit each other a lot, and I'm like, oh my God, it's so true. It's built on lies. That's true, too. It just takes more of a serious route. Okay, what's your number 4?
So, my number 4, I had a feeling because we both love Gus so much that these were going to be really, like...
Shawn heavy?
We were going to poop on Shawn a lot. And I wanted to be fair and equitable. And so this one, I focused on Gus, even though I love him. Gus knows that he is Shawn's only friend, and he enjoys the power that he has to threaten to quit Psych because he does it so much, and it's to get his way. He's constantly saying, I'm done. I'm beyond done. I give up. I'm out. You're on your own for this one, Shawn. Because he knows that Shawn's going to chase him, and Shawn's going to woo him, and Shawn's going to win him back. So he gets his power back by saying, no, I'm going to quit. I'm really going to quit this time.
I love that because I think it mirrors one of my other favorite male friendships, and that is Ferris Bueller and Cameron Fry. Mm-hmm. And then Cameron's always like,
I'm not coming,
but Ferris would be like, you're not gonna be my best friend anymore. And he'd be like, you've been saying that since the 3rd grade. Like, you've been threatening to not be my friend anymore for like the longest time. And so I love that. I think you're absolutely right. And he can play off the, I'm going to quit. And he's like, I have a job. You still work there? Like, there's
yeah.
Like, even Julia, it's like, you still have your job.
Yeah.
Right. I think, though, that Gus can say that. Not only does it provide some power in a relationship where he might not have as much power as Shawn, because I don't think it's always equitable between the two of them. No. But I think that it gives him some leverage when he doesn't usually have it. Mm-hmm. And so, but also I think because of who Gus is, that he would only do that if he had his job at the pharmaceutical company. If he didn't, for whatever reason, I think that he wouldn't threaten that because it would be all he had.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's a good one. Oh my God, I love our list. Okay,
yes.
Mine is totally Shawn heavy.
See, I knew it. I was like, it's really easy to blame all the problems on Shawn, but that's not fair, Courtney.
Or you should be saying it to me because most of mine are Shawn. But at the same time, like going on my number 5, that it's based on the lie. Well, the part of the problem is that Gus enables him. So I mean, everything does include both of them, mm-hmm. Because they either allow it or enable them to do it, including this next one. And my number 4 is that Shawn manipulates and sabotages Gus. So the first one that is super obvious is manipulates him in terms of money. Like, Shawn doesn't pay for anything.
That's on my list.
Because even at a certain point, like, Gus is like, I have bills. I have psych bills. I have your bills.
I think it's the season 3 season premiere where Gus is like, I make $48,000 a year. And Shawn goes, oh my God, you need that much money? And Gus goes, I need 32. The rest of it is for you. I claimed you as a dependent on my taxes last year, Shawn. But we'll get into that more because that's one of my reasons.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I have that he lies to get Gus to places he wants him to be at. Like, he says mm-hmm. they're going to go get food, but there's no food in this location. One thing that stuck out to me in the last rewatch, and I had written it down in my notes for all 3, but it really stuck out the 3rd time, was that Shawn gives Gus the wrong information at the spelling bee so that he loses because he's afraid that Gus is going to go off to camp or do all these things and leave him behind. So he does a lot of things because he thinks Gus is going to leave him behind. So there's some level of sabotage. And then,
Aggiornamento. Everybody knew it was an I.
Yeah. One of the ones, so this is season 1, episode 7, Who You Gonna Call, where one of the clients is being haunted. And Gus says the voice is telling Shawn about a ghost. Says Gus, the voice told me that her house is built on an old Indian burial ground. She said she was so sad because she had died many moons ago and was trapped between worlds. And when I'd ask her name, Shawn, she said my name, and then Shawn would be like, my name is Wilting Flower. I died. This is my woman voice of Shawn. I died without knowing love. Will you be my friend? Gus is like, how do you know that? I never told that to anyone before. And Shawn goes, I was Wilting Flower, Gus. I can't believe you fell for that.
Also that episode, Shawn full on drugs Gus.
Problematic.
Because Shawn wants to go talk to the ex-girlfriend of the guy being haunted, and Gus says, no, I have to get back to work. And so Shawn goes, okay, fine, let's stop for Wendy's, and I'm buying. And then Gus goes to the bathroom, and Shawn puts like 6 antihistamine tablets in Gus's milkshake so that he falls asleep and they can drive to talk to the guy's ex.
Oh my god. Yeah, so Problematic manipulates and sabotages. This last one with the wilting flower I'll bring up a little bit later, but I think that is a moment that's quite interesting. Okay, so what's your number 3?
They frequently throw each other under the bus, especially in potentially dangerous situations. Ooh. This one is on both of them because they both do it where, you know, they're approaching something scary and one of them just takes off running and the other one's just left there kind of like...
Can we talk about one of their interests being running away? Because there's so many scenes of them running. It's hilarious.
I do enjoy the joke in the first movie that's like, why don't we do the thing we do best? And they run away. But like the one that sticks out the most to me is Shawn and Gus in the season 2 finale with the mummy are dealing with... It's not the season 2 finale. I think it's in season 2. Anyway... Not important, Courtney. They are approaching the van that's crashed into a tree. And Shawn's like, there could be somebody inside that's hurt. We need to, like, go there. And Gus is like, no, it's super scary. I don't want to. So he grabs this little, like, tiny toy bat. And they go. And Gus shines his flashlight and sees it's the mummy in the driver's seat of the van.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it cuts back to the shot of Gus. And Shawn has already sprinted all the way back to the car. Like, he is noped up. So
Bye.
Gus is, like, horrified and, like, slowly processing, oh, my God, there's a mummy in this car. And Shawn has just noped on out of there. He's like, you're on your own, goodbye. And they both do that to each other. And they always throw each other in the bus like, this was your idea. And it's like, no, you said we should do blood. It's just constant.
Yeah. Well, I also think that in terms of the running away and leaving someone behind, I think in their brain it's fight or flight, and they both assume the other is going to flight. Mm-hmm. But someone's flight is hasn't taken off yet, so to speak.
Yeah, someone's still processing.
That's a good one. My third one is Shawn is often jealous of Gus's friendships and romantic relationships.
Yep.
And I think this is different. The only time Gus is jealous is of a cat.
There is concern, though, when Shawn and Jules start dating. He's afraid to tell Gus because Gus is going to go on another caramel bender. Like he did with Abigail. So...
But the thing is, he likes when Shawn is in a relationship, right? He's like, when Abby and him break up, he's wearing like tailgating clothes, eating smelly food,
eating his corn nuts,
and all I want to do is zoom. Like he has just like, he has. So he's like, God, I wish you'd get back together. So I think there is a level of that he does seem happier when Shawn is dating someone, but I think there's an initial, maybe he needs some time, whereas I think Shawn is more likely to right off the bat not like feed himself food, but to try to sabotage again.
Yeah, and I think this isn't on my list, but this is something I just thought of. With Gus, part of it might be he's so used to being the one who has his life together. Like, he's got his poop in a group. He has a 9 to 5.
Yes.
He has a steady income. He's the one with his life together. So when Shawn gets into a relationship, it's like, oh my God, my friend who is an absolute mess, who I have to, like, prop up, he can find somebody and I can't. So he has that initial, like, oh no, the friend that I've always known I'm better than is actually doing better than me in this instance.
Well, and I think that's an interesting point, and that would be envy, right? He's envious because Shawn has his poop in a group, as you said, whereas Shawn is jealous because he's afraid that Gus is going to leave him behind for this other friend, for Blockapella, for Jason, the guy you created the pineapple pinata at summer camp with, right?
Camp Tikihama,
Yeah, so you often see him shutting down flirting, wanting him to be a part of it, kind of moving his way in to be part of, like, the quartet, any of those sorts of things. So I think that comes down to he doesn't want to lose Gus, whereas when Gus gets upset, it's like he's using it as a social comparison to see where his life is at, which is a little bit different. So, and in both cases, like, that would fit here. So I should have said Shawn is jealous and Gus is envious, because both of those can be problematic for friendship. Yeah. It's important to know that other people can have relationships and that other people's journeys are going to be a little bit different than ours, and we should always just support our friends, right?
Yeah. It's hard because we both love Gus so much.
I know, it is hard.
So this is why I'm going out of my way to be like, well, Gus is a problem too, but I love him.
No, he's not. He's perfection.
You're right. He is perfect.
What's your number 2?
My number 2 is, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but the financial situation. Shawn is just a mooch. He's mooching up. He's surviving because Gus has a steady job, and Gus is funding the both of them. Yeah. And that is not a healthy dynamic for a friendship.
I actually think this could be the thing that, if this relationship translated to real life, and we have obviously a suspension of disbelief for a TV show, right, I think this would be the thing that would end their friendship.
I think so, because I think at a certain point, particularly given Gus's life events in the second movie, at a certain point, you're not going to want to be supporting your adult friend as another child. Like, they're an adult. They got to get it together. You know.
I don't know, does putting Shawn as a dependent on taxes save him money?
You can't actually claim an adult legally unless they're your offspring.
Damn it!
They have to, like,
Gus,
be
you're gonna get tax invasion.
I know, I was like, legally, I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a tax expert, but I'm pretty sure, like, you have to, I think Gus would have legally had to adopt Shawn in order to claim as a dependent on his taxes.
I don't think that's going to happen either.
No, because Henry would need to sign over forfeiture of parental rights.
Emancipation!
This is all stuff that I picked up from doing, like, mock trial in high school and watching TV. I don't know.
Here's the thing. I think there would be no problem with Henry signing Shawn over it.
Henry would be like, it's your responsibility, kid.
I've had those papers signed for years.
Yeah, he's like, I was just begging someone else to take you. So let's just fill in Gus's name and update the date.
Yeah.
I'm done.
So my number 2 is, they keep secrets from each other, but not necessarily secrets that friends should keep from each other. So Gus is known as the Vault of Secrets, which I think is pretty important. So there's one scene where Juliet's case about an ex-boyfriend is supposed to be in his Vault of Secrets, which Shawn does not allow, so he does not sort of respect the Vault of Secrets. Mm-hmm. But, for example, Gus never told Shawn he was married. Shawn doesn't tell Gus about his grandmother's ring that he's going to use to propose to Juliet. Mm-hmm. And then, obviously, I talked about before, Gus never tells Shawn he was the second spitter in the famous spitball incident until that case. And something like that might not be as big deal, but being married or talking about proposal, especially for two friends that are so close, I think that can be problematic because we don't have to share everything. But I think we should share the important things.
Yeah, the big stuff.
And both of those seem like the important things. So I think secret keeping can be very problematic for people. So that's my number 2. What's your number 1?
My number 1, and this is kind of a both of them problem because they both equally participate in this. They are extremely codependent.
That's my number 1!
Yes! High five!
High five!
So Shawn truly considers Gus to be a piece of himself. Like, he so frequently just refers to me, but he means him and Gus. And, like, it is not even a question in his mind because he truly feels that Gus isn't even an extension of himself. Yes. Gus is him, and he is Gus.
Yeah, okay. So I said that they're codependent, but if that, and so my caveat for this is, so codependence, it can be toxic in a lot of ways because they can't function without the other. they enable a lot of inappropriate behaviors like lying about being a psychic, things like that. But I also extend this a little bit further to bring in an idea that is often, I would say it's not an actual academic theory, but I think it's a theory that exists about male friendships, is that if they're not physically together, they might not be friends. Mm-hmm. And I think because they are so codependent, they couldn't physically be apart. And that they wouldn't be able to be friends if they didn't live together in the same area. So Gus doesn't quit the pharmaceutical company until season 8, but then like 10 days later, he gets another job.
Yeah.
Gus moves to San Francisco. Shawn moves back to Santa Barbara at the beginning of the show, and it doesn't seem like they've been in close contact. What's their dream? Their dream is to have back-to-back houses, or houses that connect, have connecting pools and things like that.
A shared pool in the backyard and a lazy river going through both of their living rooms.
Yes, thank you. Yep. And then also what I think is interesting is when Shawn decides to go with Juliet to San Francisco, which is the series finale episode, he believes that they have to break up. And he even says, you know, how do I break up with my best friend? And he talks to Lassie about it. And it's like, but you don't need to end your friendship. You're not breaking up. And so, of course, though, the codependency leads to that final scene. And it includes the proposal to Juliet.
Gus is just as much a part of it.
So Gus tries to help Shawn propose to Juliet. He tries to get him to use the Pluto as part of it. And then Shawn says to Juliet, I know that I come with baggage and a best friend who's not going anywhere ever. And it says, Jules, will you marry us? We, mostly me, even though Gus is always going to be part of the deal. And someday he'll have his own Juliet and her name will be Juliet. And she'll be Jamaican, and together we'll be one giant frosted black and white cookie. And we're going to have dogs, all rescues, and kids probably before we're 60. Just marry me so I can show you how amazing our life will be. And so you can't even propose without Gus, which of course I adore.
Adorable. Like, again, I don't actually believe their friendship is unhealthy. I love them, and it's a TV show, so they got to make it funny. And in order to make it funny, you have to be ridiculous. But it's so much. And it's funny for me because, like, two of my closest friends, up until recently, one lived in Florida. She now lives 2 hours away instead of a 2-hour flight away. One of my best friends lives in Australia. We talk regularly. So it's funny for me to be like, and then Gus just like quits his job and follows Shawn to San Francisco. And I'm like, man, if I did that with my friends, I'd be living in Alaska, I'd be living in Florida, I'd be in Australia. Like, I'd be all these places because so many of my friends don't live near me.
Well, and I also think like there's some level of, it's a TV show, and so people would think that's weird. But there's something about them being upfront about it, and that I don't think Juliet sees what's happening anything as weird because that it's obvious that Shawn is going to come with Gus, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And so, obviously, I want to fairly, as much as I can because I love Gus, I want to fairly break down their friendship, which includes the good stuff and some of the problematic stuff, right? Always dark in the light and light in the dark. So what's your final verdict on their friendship? How would you rate their friendship as a whole?
Love it. It's not for everyone. It would drive me nuts to have somebody that up in my business all the time and like to have to like fully financially support a friend and all of that. Like, it wouldn't work for me. I don't think it would work in real life, but for them it works and I love it.
Yeah.
I think the line for when it becomes toxic with codependence, and this is just purely speculative, I'm not a relational communications expert, but for me it's like when it impedes their lives and they both acknowledge like this is a problem, like if there's an issue, but it works for them. It doesn't work for everybody, and it technically, like, not to get to, I was an English major in college on you, but my thesis technically was in my Virginia Woolf class, was on the idea of a shared consciousness with close friends that act like family, and based on the Waves by Virginia Woolf, which is the last thing I thought I was going to talk about in this episode about Psych, but they kind of have this shared consciousness where, you know, your experiences are my experiences. My personality is your personality. Like, we are this one unit. We have this shared consciousness, and it works for them. And that's great. What about you?
Well, I have a couple thoughts. I agree. I love that shared consciousness idea that that they see each other as the other's person, right? Mm-hmm. And I think oftentimes we consider that person to be a romantic partner. And I think for Shawn, that's Juliet. But for friends, it's Gus. And so I think oftentimes our person can only be of romantic nature, that we don't have friendship soulmates or we don't have these other things, and I think they do exist. And I think that's what I love so much about Shawn and Gus, is because they reflect this idea that you can have the job and the romantic and the family and all that, but you can still have your best friend, and that's okay. You don't have to give them up because you have a job. You don't have to give them up because you got married. You don't have to give them up because you have kids. All of these things can be important. And I know that in life, there are some priorities. There might be times where friends aren't as important than other times, but I don't think they should just be completely washed away as unimportant as we grow older, right? In a lot of ways, I think Shawn and Gus feel like they're stuck at the age that we see always at the beginning of the show as the two middle school kids. Mm-hmm. And they just kind of like, although they've grown physically, they might not have grown mentally or psychologically.
In a lot of ways, they've grown like emotionally and like mentally for other people, but around each other, they absolutely have not.
Yeah, absolutely. And so some of the other thoughts that I had like jotted down was that, you know, someone who's annoying to one person is not annoying to another. And there are a lot of times that people see annoying behaviors as, say, deal breakers. And I think the two of them are past that, and they see that they cannot change the other person and that we are more than our annoying behaviors. Because if so, I mean, how many times we heard, Shawn, I think they would no longer be friends, right? But also, like, the wilting flower joke, I think is so mean, right? And I would, like, be devastated.
See, whereas I'm like, that's hilarious.
I would be devastated. Like, I didn't get invited to Purple Shirt Day in elementary school, and I came home crying. This is Gus's Purple Shirt Day in a way. But I also understand that some friendships are all about razzing, pranking, and teasing, and that is how their affection is communicating. So the wilting flower might be more of a joke than it was Alysa's Purple Shirt Day, which ended up being, like, devastating, right? So it's not necessarily a betrayal. But for some people, I don't think they would be able to handle that. Like, they might be too sensitive for friendships that, you know, razz each other.
Yeah, I think for me, generally, I'm not a person who enjoys pranks. I think for the most part, they're really mean. Don't like pranks.
I hate them. Hate them!
But I barely consider that a prank because I think Shawn was like, this is okay because this is so obviously fake. Like, Gus's dad had installed drywall. He put a walkie-talkie in there. He borrowed the plot to Poltergeist. And he was like, there's no way Gus is going to believe this, so this is okay because it's going to be a funny thing.
But you have to know Gus is going to believe it. Middle school Gus is going to believe that. Shawn, middle school Shawn, you know middle school Gus is going to believe it.
I really think that middle school Shawn was like, he's going to crack up. It's going to get his goat for a second, and then he's going to realize what's happened. He's going to go, Shawn, and we're going to laugh about it. And then when Gus never brought it up, he's like, oh, he must not have heard the walkie-talkie. That's fine. So that's why I think that's fine.
Yeah, that was funny, though. But one of the things is, like, I talk about, you know, friendships in terms of their qualities. They're considered to be voluntary. They're based on enjoyment, sharing similar interests. They have all that, and I think the number one thing is enjoyment, that they enjoy being around each other. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe more importantly is that they're aware of their friendship, what it means, and even though they might not always share what kind of friendship they have, that they clearly communicate it in some other way, and they've made it clear in other ways that they never regret being friends. Like, the message that you shared as your favorite friendship quote when they're being held by Yin. And so I asked what people loved about their friendship in the Psych Murderino group called Did You Hear About Murder? That's Messed Up, right?
I didn't know that was the name of it. I love it.
So Jordan said her favorite thing about their friendship is their whisper fights, which I'm like, how did we not have a 10-minute segment on whisper fights?
Oh my God, they're talking over each other and they're just like, come on. And then they somehow come to a consensus and they're done.
Yeah, whisper fights are like the best way to manage conflict. Alyssa said, I love when Gus starts off hating the name Shawn uses, but then towards the end of the series, he embraces the name. I love when they sync their behavior and just have fun, like during 100 Clues and doing the chocolate dance. It's always my favorite when they both commit to whatever shenanigans are going on. And I also love some of their phrases. Wait for it. You know that's right. And come on, son. Casely said Gus's speech about how Psych turned him into an adventurer with a friendship for the ages in the series finale makes my eyes well up every time. Not only do we rarely see tender male friendships on TV, you tell him, Casely, but we basically never see a character make major life choices around a friendship. Casely, you know what's up. I know it's sort of played for last, but I think it's wonderful. So I want to pause here because I want to share that sort of speech by Gus. Okay, so Gus, of course, doesn't get an appropriate goodbye. He gets a DVD from Shawn, and so he drives to San Francisco. And he said, Shawn, and this, of course, is in a crime scene standing over a dead body. Shawn, I was lying. I was so lying. I looked at all those faces, and I realized they have the same job. Yes, I have a better office, a hotter secretary, a soda machine, but it's the same job, and I can't be that man, Shawn. I'm an adventurer now with a friendship for the ages. And if I have to live in another city to make it happen, then so be it. That's the way it has to be. And then Shawn goes, did you have second thoughts? Never. And then, of course, we see he's turned around 12 times. And then he says, but it doesn't matter. But look at me now, Shawn. I am here. I found myself and not at a 9-to-5, but with my closest friends solving crimes, living life to the fullest. And if we have to do it a little further up the coast, then that's what we have to do. So be it. I love that. Casely, I feel like we're friendship observing kindred spirits. Everything that I think about Psych, you said it. Like making transitions with friendship in mind. Amen. So Lauren said, I love that Gus is so sensitive and caring. I think he's a great example of non-toxic masculinity. I love to see how he interacts in a friendship. I love that too. Chloe says, it's frustrating sometimes Shawn takes Gus for granted, but OMG, their friendship is everything. I love all their quirks and that they're so in sync. Just like, bye, bye, bye. Carly said, Gus walks into a bank is another good one for showing how much Shawn cares about him, because sometimes it seems like Gus cares more and Shawn takes advantage, like stealing his clothes, sneaking to his apartment, putting loans in his name, but really Shawn needs Gus and they're brothers. And I think that is a great one too. So Shawn doesn't want to go in to cash a check, so Gus does it, and then when Juliet and Lassie arrives to say that the bank is being robbed, he's like, he feels bad, and Juliet can't believe that he didn't psychically see it. And he's like, don't you think I'm kicking myself enough that my friend is in there and I'm out here and there isn't anything I can do about it? And then Lenny said, I love that when one of them gets mad at the other, they talk or fight it out and resolve things. And I think fight it out might include some of the hitting you talked about. It might include whisper fights, and then the resolving probably includes apology jerk chicken nachos or some sort of waffle sort of situation or whatever the case is. And so I love that I asked this of people, and they really hit on some of the important moments that I wanted to talk about. But I think the verdict for their friendship is shown in some of these other moments that we've talked about plenty, but I want to share a couple others. So Murder Anyone Bueller from season 3 is their 13th high school reunion. But at the end, this is one of the first times I think you really see Shawn coming forth and saying something, not just to Gus, but to people around him. So he makes the speech on the stage in front of all of his former classmates. His parents are there, the detectives, and Gus. And it says, I know I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank someone who's not only responsible for planning of tonight, complete with a Rastafarian theme you all embrace so heartily, but who's also the mastermind behind solving tonight's crime. I know it's true, I'm psychic, but oftentimes my revelations are nothing but a cryptic mess. Tonight, for instance, all I could see were scenes from Pretty in Pink and a rhombus and a t-shirt that read, Soccer Moms Are Easy. Now, I don't even know what these things mean, but Gus is somehow able to shape them into cold, hard evidentiary facts. But that's not what makes him great. No, sir. Burton Guster has been my best friend since we were 5. And maybe, just maybe, if any of you can look yourselves in the mirror and know that you've been half as good a friend to someone else as Gus has been to me, well, you too can be considered great. Give it up for my best friend, Burton Guster. Another episode that there isn't necessarily a quote from here, but in season 7, there's an episode called Office Space where Gus comes at the beginning of the show, knocks on the window, and he's like, I screwed up bad, Shawn. And so what happens is it turns into he's mad at his boss, he quits, he writes a note. He goes to see his boss to apologize at night. The boss is dead, and in the hand is the note that he wrote that said, you're an asshole, I'm quitting. So he takes the note, and he eats it, because that's not gross. And then he starts choking on it. He drinks water. He spits it out. He knocks over a plant. He knocks over the body. There's so much touching and damaging of a crime scene. And then Shawn says to Gus as he's telling him what's happening, we're in this together like we always are. So they go down to the scene, and Shawn gets it into as well. He falls. His nose is bleeding. And they both go to Henry and said, Dad, we really, really, really screwed up. And so I think there's always a joke of like, you're the kind of best friend that would help me move a dead body. And I feel like this episode really sort of says, like, I'm going to do whatever you need. I always have your back. But the last thing I wanted to share, because we've touched on so many, you brought it up, some of the people from the Facebook page brought it up, but you know, I do have a slight problem with Shawn's goodbye to Gus. I think it's a little unfair. He gives him a DVD, but Gus is not going to take it, so I appreciate that from Gus. But this is what Shawn says in the video. And so I accept that this is my fatal flaw. I just can't quite engage all the way when I really need to, when it really matters, you know, when the chips are down. So I guess what I'm saying is that I'm sorry, Gus. I'm sorry that I can't do goodbyes. I tried so hard to tell you, man. I just suck at the real stuff, you know that. You're going to be fine. You're going to be better than fine. I just can't help thinking that the only problem that you really had this whole time is me. And I've kept you from the life you deserve, you know? The life that you've earned, the life that you've had. If I hadn't barged in your door 8 years ago and said, we're going to play detective whether you want to or not. I love you, man. I love the message. I think it's still a little unfair. It's like sending a text message to break up with someone. But I think what we see is that Shawn has fully accepted the fact that he can't do these hard things and that he's probably caused a lot of problems for Gus and that he still loves him. But it is Gus who said, that is not an appropriate goodbye. And so that's when he goes all the way to San Francisco, even though he had 12 times of second thoughts about going. And so we see them continue to be friends in the movies, including the one that just came out recently, which does end with, spoiler alert, Gus is going to be a father and he's getting married.
Yay. I do love the little moment where like Shawn is giving Gus and his new fiance a moment, and Shawn bends down and goes, come on, son. To her belly.
But I loved the movie in that sense that you still have the same shenanigans. Like Gus is hiding in Juliet's Snuggie in a drawer because he's eating a snack or something like that.
He doesn't want to go down the fire escape because it's too steep.
Yeah, it is too steep. But that they still have this idea at the end as all these new plans are coming up that the houses, like that they have always imagined having these houses back up to each other and share that space, and that's still the case, and it's still communicated to the women that they're engaged to or married to, and that it's a package deal. And I think that there's so many times where women might express the things that they want in their life or from the marriage or for having kids or whatever the case is, and I don't think that you see that as much for men. And although anyone might say it might be strange to have a shared lazy river that goes through your houses, but I don't think that their friendship would work as well if they didn't. And so I hope that there are so many more movies to come where we will see their kids grow up and you just see them going by on the lazy river. Gus Jr. And then a little Shawn Jr. Oh my God, what if their kids are best friends? Have they ever talked about that?
What if
oh my God.
Their kids are in love?
Oh, then oh no, I want it to be friends.
You want it to be friends? No, see, I think that would be, they want their kids to be friends, but then their kids fall in love.
Oh, snap. Oh my God. If they don't give us all of that in the next 20 years, I'm going to be really upset.
Steve Franks, you can email me at spoophour@gmail.com. I'm happy to do a story outline for you.
Yeah, let's make this happen. Oh my goodness. I love their friendship so much, and talking about it the last 2 episodes has been so much fun. I wish I could do it forever, which I guess I could in the sense if I just started a Psych themed podcast. Which that would add to the 3 podcasts that I technically already have, 2 that are aired, 1 that's coming out in the fall. So we'll see. But I want to hear, and I'm sure Courtney does too, what do you think about Shawn and Gus as friends? Tell us everything. Tell us your favorite Gus don't be, your favorite Gus nickname, your favorite quotes, your favorite episodes, your favorite characters, your favorite friendship moments, your reasons why you think they have an awesome friendship, and some of the reasons why they might have some difficulties in their friendship. Let us know, and then also let me know which media friendship to cover next on the podcast. I have some ideas, but I also like to hear what people think. Where do you think I should go next? We did Veronica Mars last year. We have Psych. What other ones do we discuss? So you can email me at bestforeverspod@gmail.com or find Best Forevers Pod on all the socials. Courtney, where can they find you in Spoop Hour?
You can find Spoop Hour on all your podcatchers. That's Spoop Hour with 2 P's, so it's SPOOP.
That's right.
And as in pineapple. And you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Spoop Hour, all one word. You can also email us your firsthand ghost stories. If you've ever visited Wispy Sunny Pines and you've seen Scary Sherry, if your cousin's mother did that, we'll take that story too. We don't care. You can email spoophour@gmail.com.
That's awesome. If you have a Sherry Scary story, I will not be tuning in. That stuff frightens me. Okay.
Amazing. Alaska has a Scary Mary.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I'm sure there's a lot of scaries across the nation.
When I came across that story, all I could think of was like Scary Sherry, Scary Sherry, Scary Sherry. And so the whole episode, I'm like, don't say Sherry, don't say Sherry, don't say Sherry.
Well, that's the thing, is there's so many Scary Marys and Sherrys across the nation that we could just have, another season of Psych.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe 10 more movies? I don't know.
Steve Franks, email spoophour@gmail.com. We'll walk you through it.
Or if you just want to talk about Psych, Dule Hill and James Roday Rodriguez or Steve Franks, you can email me at bestforeverspod@gmail.com. That's right. So until next time, friends, think about the friend that you have shared consciousness with, because without our friends, who would we be? Thanks for listening to Best Forevers. If you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and of course, share with a friend. Please be sure to follow Best Forevers on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Best Forevers Pod, and I'm at Dr. Alysa Lucas on Twitter. You can always find the podcast webpage for more information at bestforeverspod.com, and share your stories of friendship by emailing me at bestforeverspod@gmail.com. And if you'd like to support the movement to love on our friends more, check out the podcast on patreon.com/bestforeverspod. Now, friends, check out this recommended podcast that you must get in your ear holes immediately.
Hey
Sasha.
Hey, Courtney.
Where can you get hot takes about ghosts, cryptids, farts, and cats?
I don't know, where?
On our podcast, Spoop Hour.
Oh, that's right.
Each week we talk about the things that spook us out and we laugh through our fear.
You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Spoop Hour, and you can listen to our podcast on iTunes, Podbean, or really anywhere else that you get your podcasts. Feel free to also drop us a line at spoophour@gmail.com.
We want to hear about your ghosts.
Thanks.